1:30 p.m. City Council meeting. At this time, we will stand for the pledge and prayer by Councilman Loftus. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's fine. Our most gracious Father in heaven, we thank you again for this day which you have blessed us with. We thank you for every blessing that you have placed upon this city. And most of all, we thank you for the council members who are serving to make decisions that affect our city, that we use the right wisdom and understanding and make the right decision that will help our citizens. Also, we want to thank you for the employees, the staff, and everyone that works for this city. We know that everybody that puts in the effort is trying to make this city better for the people that live here.
Yes.
And most of all, we continue to ask you to be our guiding light as we go down life's journey. In Christ Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And at this time, we'll have questions or comments from any citizen that would like to speak. And if not, then we'll move on to the.
We got one.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, come up to the.
I didn't read the map
Oh.
right. Council people, mayors, officer. I'm just visiting my friend. I'm from Western Colorado,
Okay.
Grand Junction, and visiting towns that are similar size, like Greeley, Colorado. And I went down to Tucson just to look at it. There are 400 law enforcement officers down that they can't hire back. Grand Junction's 40 people down. This town, I think I talked about the other day, it's 3 officers down. Where does that affect people? Probably on the roads. The cars are getting a little more bad shape. Laws are being extended. We have the law up there that you can't roll coal. Have you ever heard of that? Rolling coal? Have you heard of it, sir? It's diesels when they step on the gas and it blows all this coal on parades and whatever. The big thing is if I rub elbows with you, maybe the good things will stick to me and I can take them back to Grand Junction. And Junction, fairly close to you because I've been going down to the city council meetings and the county commissioners meetings for 10 years now. And I know them all on first name basis. I say, some of them give me a silent pat on the back. The other way is, if looks could kill, I'd be a dead man. So yes, you have nice, you pointed out the other day, the sitting, the benches outside, the greenery. Grand Junction has that too. Used to have 4 lanes. Now back in the 60s, they cut out 2 lanes and made it a serpentine. So we have parades all the time. The downtown's very busy. Is my time up? Probably. Thank you people for listening. I'm just trying to push the needle forward is all. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking.
Thank you, sir.
And if there's no one else, then we will move on to the city manager's monthly report.
So I know this is a special meeting, but since we're going to miss the meeting where I normally do this, and I generally get positive feedback from the council and the citizens on this, I thought I'd do a little bit of an abbreviated, short update. Financials, we're still doing well. Sales tax was up 3% for our February payment, which that is the December collections. And if you remember, we're paying back that overpayment that had accrued over 5 years. So if you take that out, that's worth about 8%. So with that 8% added back in, our increase was about 11%. Last year's February payment for Christmas time was about 14% up, so we're doing well. This is the first month since Tractor Supply and Shoe Sensation and Bell's Outlet were open, so those we are seeing some positive impact from that, so we feel good with that. If you look at, when we get your charts in your next email, you'll see that general fund revenues and expenditures are on track with the budget and getting closer to our 5-year average now that our averages are kind of catching up. We're still we're at our budget on revenue, and we're a little below on expenditures, so we're still tracking well. Keep in mind that now that most of the property tax has been paid, going forward, it's uncommon for the expenditures to outpace revenue and general fund, because revenues are higher when we get sales tax, and then they're really high when we get our industrial district payments, which come in 2 months, but we are still in the positive. With some of our openings, I expect that to stay the same. Water and sewer, our revenue is still above our budget amount and above the 5-year average, while our expenses are still about at the 5-year average, and that's still fueled by strong industrial water sales. That might take off a little bit later this year when Phillips has some down cycles. You know, they will stop taking some water for those maintenance turnarounds, so we might see a little impact with that. Like I said, sales tax still remains above our budgeted amount, so we're collecting higher than that and definitely way higher than the 5-year average. Hotel occupancy is still tracking above our budgeted amount and above the 5-year average as well. If you've seen on Facebook, Smoky City Liquors had a big pallet of Pendleton 20-year that they had brought in for the cast and crew of 4/6 when they start filming back here, so they should be here sometime soon, which will, you know, last time it filled our hotels up, so we should see that impact in our hotel occupancy tax here probably pretty soon. And then, of course, later this year with those maintenance turnarounds, so I do expect hotel tax to remain strong throughout this year. Projects, we're just about finished with the sewer replacement on 3rd Street in the Main Street alley, so they've started grading that alley, getting ready for pavement. They're going to try to do that this week, and that should get that fixed up and get 3rd Street back open. The sewer is flowing now. Like I said in my weekly email, this is the first time the sewer has been flowing completely in that area for about 4 years, and so we have members on the wastewater crew that have not worked here where they haven't had to suck out a manhole. So I know that they're enjoying a little break. The next issue we've talked about is down in Rock Creek, where we're going to have to start planning some replacement and an above-ground sewer main where the creek comes out, but we're working through that. 10th Street, we'll start bidding on that February 25th, so we'll have that bid period out for a month, and then we'll work through that. We look to award that at the first meeting in April. So the 10th Street project will likely start mid to late April. By now, and I know there's maybe a little bit of confusion in my text message, but if you haven't noticed, the stoplight at Wilson and Roosevelt is finally working.
Yes, got to use it
So
today.
it's nice not to have to answer those questions of when is that going to come. It is coming. Some of the, you know, there are timers on that and sensors, you know, as they work through that. So it's going to take a little while to get the programming refined. So, you know, I know there's been some feedback on that. You never make anybody happy. They were unhappy when it wasn't there, and now they're unhappy that they have to wait when there's nobody there. But some of that will get worked through. But it does seem like
Has people been running it? I'm just curious.
well, and what I will
'Cause I almost
is
did
I think
almost.
Donnie, if he hasn't yet, he probably should give Officer Woods a Boomtown buck for his work there in the first day.
Really?
Officer Woods is our motor officer, and he spent pretty much his entire shift within those 300 feet.
I actually have a friend that lives in French, and she was coming into town. I guess 2 officers had people on each side, and she's like, "Way to go, Borger PD!" And I was like, "Okay." So they must have not been paying attention.
It was my first time to get there, and I was like, "Oh, there's a light now,"
Yeah, I'm looking too.
and I even knew it.
And we even had signs out on all 3 intersecting streets that it was going to be
Yes.
coming, but
Yeah.
we do get our place to have. Of course, I come that way every morning. It seems like it's getting a little bit lined out. Some people are getting used to it. I will say this weekend it was nice when I was coming out of Walmart
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
I'm sure.
on the Roosevelt side. So that is up. We've added the stop signs at the traffic light at Hedgecoke and 10th Street, where that stoplight will be turned off here shortly. Planning for that 10th Street project when we will be doing away with that stoplight. So, of course, the Economic Development Corporations continue to work on workforce housing, workforce training, and housing development, and we've got some projects there that I think you'll start seeing up. We got some of the preliminary plats back for the Yucca Park Estates, so the council can likely be seeing a 380 agreement to help our portion of the infrastructure funding on that probably in the next 60 days. So I think we're getting close to seeing some movement there. With utilities, like I said, they're excited that they've got sewer flowing again, so now they're getting back to some more of their regular maintenance, cleaning manholes. You know, they regularly clean manholes. That's been delayed a little bit because they've got to go suck out the ones that aren't working. And like I said, we are supposed to be paving this week. They're getting the hydro companies scheduled back to try to find some more areas to do our test hole drilling up in the northwest well field. We have started reaching out to Cremwa, and we're going to start probably pushing some water right acquisitions a little more in haste. I think these 2 wells will likely be the last 2 we'll be able to find in our acreage in the northwest well field. So we still have lots of water, but we're to that point now to where we need to start planning for what happens after 50 years. So we still have lots of saturated thickness up there in our well, so they're still able to produce for many, many, many years, but we might have, some quantity limitations depending on industrial growth.
But they haven't hit water yet. I mean, they, on the test well?
We have not. So there's a what we feel like is there's a channel that works through those water rights up there, so it's not just saturated over the entire land. There's like an underground aquifer channel. And so they've looked at all of the test holes we did when we originally did the northwest well field, and we've tried to dive into some areas. We drilled 1 or 2 that Chris just knew he's going to be there, and it wasn't there. The engineer we drilled where he said there was going to be water, it wasn't there. And I laugh because from the very beginning, the engineer he's an engineer, so we've been joking with him that, maybe we need to get a witching stick out there.
Really?
And, of course, he doesn't believe in that. He's like, we don't need that. Well, we did that anyway. After the first 5 holes did it, we tried the witching stick, and that hasn't worked yet either. So but we're slowly narrowing it down. We did find 1 hole with some water, but not the amount of water that we need. So we're close to where we're at. So, but keep in mind that we're seeing over 100 foot of saturated depth in a lot of those holes. And we're, producing 900 to 1,200 gallons per minute out of those holes. So they're high volume holes. On the southern part of the Panhandle, like Canyon's looking at wells and some of those areas in there, they're happy to get 100 GPM out of a well with 40 foot of saturation. So we're good. But the Cremwa's got some water rights in Hutchinson County that they've purchased. They're quite a ways away from any of their other rights. So I think we're going to look at maybe buying those from Cremwa. That will help since we're a member city. The water right, and when they're looking for like a 4,000 to 5,000 GPM water well, so they're looking for very specific rights to feed Cremwa. So we're working on some options there, and I think we can get something worked out with those. There to the east side of town, it would eventually be another development similar to the northwest well field at some point. But like I said, we don't need it right now. We're just trying to plan ahead like the councils did in the 80s.
Is the net well field done? I mean,
We can get we've got engineering plan to put 1 more well in there.
Okay.
And so we've got room for probably 1 more in there. So we are working through all of that. Public engagements also had a pretty busy month. They're working on kind of creating a database and keeping track of some volunteer opportunities so that if the volunteer groups are looking for something to do, we've got a central place to come and find out what's going on, where they can work with that. I know some of you have seen it on Facebook. We're working with the school district on their Get Up and Go Blank. And so that's coming up, and that's really a program to showcase the different things there are to do in this community, especially health-wise. So we'll be pushing the youth center, we'll be pushing the nature trail and the bike trail, and if you haven't been out to the youth center for pickleball yet, apparently that's starting to kind of take off. So no, it's not sour.
It's a real deal.
Yeah.
is it outside?
No, they set it up in the gym, so they have 2 kind of courts in the gym. It's a cross between tennis and ping pong. It's kind of with a wiffle ball type thing, so it's a much slower pace than tennis. So
Probably hurt somebody.
not offending anybody, but it's generally very popular with seniors because it's a way to be active without,
In other words, even fat people could do it.
Yeah, exactly.
but so we do have that. Our visitborger.com website is up and live if you haven't been checking that.
Oh,
It's
my kids have been going to that. They like it.
And it's got a lot of, our calendars, and it's progressing a little bit every day, but that's really good. And that ties to our city's app that we're about to push out, the Borger, Texas app. And so it's out there. You can download it now, but we're going to hold the PR campaign until we kind of get some things figured out. But it's another way to give you notification. And like I've said before, if you recall, 68% of our website visitors use an mobile device. And so a lot of times the app is easier to use on your phone than a mobile website. So, but it's going to have some more information there. We're still trying to pin down our headliner for Boomtoberfest, but we're starting to get really into the high busy time of that planning. We're getting ready to this summer, now that the dome is finished, we're going to be looking for some more information. We're going to probably redo dumpster art again, and probably working with the downtown merchants to expand that into some window art too.
Oh, that'd be great.
And so if we start doing some window art competitions to decorate the downtown merchants for the different seasons and have the artists do that. EDC's actually had somebody volunteer for a new mural. So they're going to donate a mural to us as soon as we find a place. So we're working through some of that. And we've also reached the college cohort kids are starting to work with Deidre, and we're looking at rebranding and kind of reorganizing the Youth Advisory Council starting next school year. So we're going to start seeing that come back.
That's great.
HR is getting prepped for the new seasonal hires. It's about time to be hiring lifeguards and all of that. So, they're getting busy with that. And we've been working on through some of the little benefit code changes and things like that. The animal control, we've got the tile completed, and they've upgraded the euthanasia room to make sure we stay in compliance with state requirements. That Daryl and his team have done most of that in-house, so they've saved us some money on that. We're appreciative for their hard work on that. We actually did get the drone in that the county has purchased in cooperation with us through their ARP funding, if you remember that agreement that we approved here a while back. And so they were able to put that up during our fire off of Florida Street and use the thermal camera part of it to kind of show the fire department. Not that they needed help to see where it was burning, but you can
Yeah.
see where it was the hottest.
Yeah.
So that was a good use there. We have completed the hiring of 2 new officers now, so we are just down 3 now, with one plan to start the academy in March now? Yes. Yeah, so they moved it up. So it's coming, so we're making progress there. And they also were able to execute 2 search warrants that cleared up some burglaries and got some property returned, so we're still working those as well. So busy time for the police department. Finance, we got the new utility billing. We call it it's the hybrid position that we had to replace that works in the office when needed to, but fills in for the field work, reconnecting, disconnecting, and manual reads. So that has started their turning. We have completed the field work for the fiscal 2021 audit. The council will finally be able to approve that audit on May 21st. March 21st, excuse me, then in May, we'll have the fiscal 2022 audit. So following the stroke of our previous auditor, we're finally kind of caught back up. I know it's kind of driving everybody crazy, but, it's nothing we could help with the auditors like that. So they also were busy this month getting out all the W-2s. Everybody gets antsy for their W-2s, but we got those out well before the deadline, so everybody's happy there. And they've been processing more credit apps as we've transitioned some of our financial policies away from P cards and working and billing. Public Works, they've been doing a lot of work at Heber Park. The 3-foot fence along the north side is up now. Like Jason mentioned yesterday, apparently it's got a side effect now that people are picking up their own trash because somebody found $3 that was catched in the wall. So now people are...
You've heard of salting mines.
That's a good idea.
So it's $3 bill.
Yeah, so we might have to budget some money just to keep some money in the fence to get people to go pick up the litter, but, so, and then, of course, the speed bumps have been installed in the parking lot, and we do have parts ordered to improve the bathrooms, and then we fixed most of the lights that we have there. They also went through, and if you noticed, red flagging on quite a few street lights, so that, I guess, got Excel just noticed them, and they have fixed 48 streetlights throughout town, so most of those should be back working. We also
Thank you.
I'm still waiting for a poll.
have,
Never mind.
I think we're still waiting, we want, yeah. They also got the new backstop put in and some of the concrete improvements completed at Agnes Howe.
It looks great. Looks real good.
And we've been working with JT Connor with Connors. He's been working with them. They're going to donate the labor, so we bought the material for the press box improvements at the Little League field. So they're going to work and get that upgraded. So we're still kind of catching up. The gas company's starting to use a private contractor for the gas cuts to repair those, so we're working through some of that process. We're about 50% through. You're seeing the street department crack seal, so we're going through and crack sealing the streets that are going to be seal coated this summer. So, we've done that on Hedgecoke and McGee, and when you do that, you get a much better final product. So they're working through that, getting ready for that. Our pothole patcher that we ordered over a year ago is now maybe going to be here in April. So we're still trying to limp along that and working through some of that. The walking floor trailer for the transfer station is maybe going to be here in March now. And we still don't have the timeline at all for the new tractor. Of course, the trailer is the most important part at this point. We were able to get another load of dumpsters in this week, so we're still kind of keeping up with that. We were able to use some of our reserve funding, or surplus from last year, to get a second batch, so we're trying to keep up with that. They are getting ready for another Purple Wave auction too with some of our other vehicles, so some of that. City Secretary, of course, she's been busy as we did the last meeting with all the election stuff. So last day to file is Friday at 5, and then the last day for a write-in candidate is February 21st at 5. And then, of course, election day is May 6th. And then the court is progressing well with our new training, and over there, we have the next court date scheduled for April 6th. So I've been keeping up with that. In the fire department, we got our ISO results back. They have confirmed our ISO 2 rating again for another 5 years. So there'll be no impact on your insurance. So that's good. Remember that less than 23% of fire departments, I think, are 2 or better in the nation. So we're in the top 10 to 20% of all fire departments. So that's definitely a big service we provide there. They had 4 firefighters go through the C3 active shooter class in Pampa. And so they had good feedback from that, getting prepared for anything that may or may not happen. We did have a lot of training at the Dome this last month with the fire department. They brought in the retired firefighter speaker that did kind of the Mayday type training during the day, and then did the firefighter counseling, family marriage planning in the evening, and that turned out really well. And then, of course, we did have that mass casualty exercise region-wide at the Dome, had 170 participants there for that, so it was really good to see that. Our new grass rig that we're down 2 grass rigs, brush trucks. One should be here in March finally, so just in time for the season, so we're excited about that. And then they also went to the elementary schools for Read Aloud Day. And so the firemen got to read to our elementary school kids on Read Aloud Day. So in the fire marshal's office, again, they were busy with that mass casualty exercise, and we had very positive feedback on the Dome, to the point that their PRPC is talking about maybe hosting the PREMAC, which is the Regional Emergency Management Conference, at the Dome. So that would be really cool. That includes, an exhibitor hall and all your training and sessions. So that'd be a big conference. And like I mentioned in that email, if you want something at the Dome, you better call. And we're starting to get, for better or worse, some people a little upset because their date is already taken. And so do try to plan ahead if you're needing something at the Dome. It's I think, utilized better than any of us could have hoped, so I'm excited to see that. We've completed the hire of 3 new dispatchers to help in dispatch for some of the turnover that's been going there. And then we are short 1 in IT now. We'll be hiring that shortly. We're in the process of working a new job description for that. I want that to be kind of a hybrid IT/GIS mapping technician as we start pushing more into our geographic maps and data-driven government, so we're working on that. Project Shield, our fire prevention program, is getting ready. It's that time of year for those letters to go back out. Our goal this year is going to be 11,500. which will allow us to buy helmets for the bicycle safety programs at the schools. So that's going to be their goal to fund with the Project Shield this year. And then there is trauma-informed training coming up February 23rd and 24th at the Dome. So they've got 70 registered on the 23rd and 40 registered the 24th. This is kind of just an awareness class for traumatic-based incidents, you know, for both responders and the general citizens to kind of see what's going on. And then March 21st is storm spotter training, because we're getting into that time of the year as well. And OEM, the radar equipment, we have it back in. And so everything's ready to be back installed on the radar tower. We're planning on that for late March. Right now, the Pantex plant's got some stuff going on and some other things that are going to delay that, but late March is still good timing, as severe weather season doesn't really start till mid-April, so we should be good by that. IT is also busy. We're getting ready to upgrade phones tomorrow after 5. And so that's part of the upgrade system. We need to try to make things a little easier and get back to our centralized point of answer.
Yeah.
And so in the coming weeks, you'll start seeing some more public education for that, hopefully 0900, and just making sure that that's, if you need something from the city, there's one number to dial. You don't have to try to figure it out.
That's nice.
We also, they resubmitted their hazard mitigation plan. Apparently, the state has gone through and rejected a bunch of them, but didn't send anybody notifications that they were rejected. So luckily, OEM was just checking on it and just came across it in the rejected status. But there's some underlying things with that.
Did they tell
give
them?
any reason?
Yeah, yeah.
It was very minor.
Oh, so they'll be able to fix it?
Yeah, we fixed it immediately. It was something on the table. It was.
Okay.
It was the state's doing some weird things with statewide OEM. You know, they took over the grant program, and all the grant emergency managers that counties, there were several counties that were using grant funding to pay for their OEM. The state started keeping all that money for themselves and defunded those positions to the county level, and then hired state employees, and has now put state employees in those counties to assist. So we're a little worried about what the state might be planning with emergency management and what some of their thinking is with that ever since TDM's been reallocated into the Texas A&M system. So there's some stuff going on there, which might be directly related to local control, that might be something that we have to kind of fight or speak with. And then both all the emergency managers and Jason and emergency responders, they did want to kind of relay to the council that in the two emergencies, pretty big emergencies we've had in the last month, both the Johnson Tank fire and then our big fire over here on South Florida, the new radio system worked extremely well. With the upgrades, nobody had busy signals, and everybody's been always able to communicate, and that's definitely been a project that's, the benefit has been felt. So that's what I have. Any other questions?
Was there a shooting at one of the bars here?
There was
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Main Street Bar.
Yes, that was on, it would have been early Sunday morning.
Okay.
Pull your microphone down, please.
Maybe talking to the microphone here. So that occurred on early Sunday morning. Pretty much what we've gathered is there was an altercation inside the bar. One of the subjects involved left, or was asked to leave by the establishment. Then later on, when all the patrons started to leave, he was in a vehicle and I guess fired some rounds at the front of the establishment, during which struck two of the patrons that were there. Both of them were treated at area hospitals. Suspect has been identified, and the detectives are still working on the investigation right now. So.
I thought I heard something like that, but, okay. Thank you.
Other questions? That's all I have.
Okay. So we'll move on to items to be considered. And item 6, consider and take appropriate action to approve an interlocal agreement between the City of Borger and Hutchinson County for the continuity.
Continuity.
How do you say that? Continuity of EMS service. Mr. Spradlin.
And so I'm going to go ahead and talk about 6 and 7 together, because
Okay,
they kind of
sounds
go
good.
together.
Yes.
The county did approve both of these yesterday at their commissioners' court meetings. And so, like the agreements we approved with Fritsch, so the continuity agreement covers EMS service between today and June 30th. And so this is what I call the continuity period between when we have to start paying AMR the subsidy and when our full agreements will start taking off. So pretty much what this says is that the county is going to pay their portion, so 25% of EMS calls are in the unincorporated areas of the county. So between now, February 14th and June 30th, we will calculate the operating loss in that period, and then starting next year, they will pay us their 25% of that operating loss, including the AMR subsidy. Now, going forward with the continuity agreement, or the continuity agreement also says we'll maintain the current service levels, which is 1.5 ambulances, and we'll maintain that either through AMR or through the Borger Fire Department when we're ready to transition. And we are still moving to a transition on May 14th.
Are you saying they won't be paying the continuity part until next year as well?
Right, so that we know how much they owe.
Okay, so we're not just, because we know what we're gonna be paying for the monthly. they're
We
not
know what the
gonna
monthly
pay
stipend's gonna be, but they're also gonna pick up our operating loss.
Okay.
Their percentage of, because like right now, we're paying Jeff Steig, our EMS coordinator, but we have no revenue to offset that yet.
Okay,
So we're incurring cost already,
okay, I get what you're saying.
and we'll only have 1 month of revenue. So it's not just the subsidy cost that they'll be paying a percentage of. They will pay a full percentage of the total operating loss
Okay.
between now and June 30th.
Okay, but they will also pay
Right.
their part of the subsidy.
That operating loss,
Okay.
that subsidy amount's gonna be factored into our
Okay,
operating
got it.
loss.
Okay,
And so then starting June 30th, we move into the full regular agreement. And then each year we'll calculate the percentage average, and they'll pay the percentage average of the operating loss.
okay.
And like I said, right now that percentage is 25%. So pretty much going forward, in the long term, Borger, Fritch, and the county will pay their percentage of any operating loss based on the percentage of calls. So if 65% of the calls are in the city, like they are now, we will cover 65% of the operating loss. If that changes because more wrecks happen in the county or whatever, it will change each year. But by doing it in arrears, then everybody can budget for it a little better. We have the most flexible budget of all the other taxing entities, so that's kind of the sales pitch on our behalf. We'll absorb some of the interim loss, but they still will have to pay us their percentage of the entire loss.
Okay.
Now, remember that in this AMR subsidy request was $675,000 a year. We anticipate the loss on the worst-case scenario to be $400,000 a year, which is almost $300,000 less than the AMR subsidy. And on the best-case scenario, we expect it to be about $20,000 a year, which is practically nothing. So, we've talked about this a lot. We do have meetings set up with the AMR personnel now. We are starting, now that we have agreements in place and we know what's going to happen, we're going to start working on the operationals sides. But pretty much, I think it's a pretty fair deal. Both of these, we're paying the percentage based on the number of calls.
I guess I just wasn't, I wasn't understanding that they were getting a whole nother year even on the subs. I guess I just missed that or something.
Well, if we do it based on a budget amount and then reconcile it at the end of the year, it's harder to,
Okay,
we don't know what to budget for, and they don't know what to budget for.
right.
And-
I get what you're saying, yeah.
And so this way, by doing it a years in arrears, we'll know what our costs are and we know what our revenue is, and it's just easier to budget for everybody. So we're taking we're absorbing the loss in this first 6 months, but then after that, we'll be able to budget exactly going forward.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve an interlocking agreement between the city of Borger and Hutchinson County for the continuity of EMS service.
Second.
All in favor? And there's none opposed, so it passes. Item number 7, consider and take appropriate action. I guess you kind of went over this, but we'll go ahead and consider and take appropriate action to approve an interlocal agreement between the city of Borger and Hutchinson County for emergency medical services.
Like I said, if you have other questions, I'll answer, but I kind of talked about those together. This is just ongoing.
Right.
The continuity is just for until June 30th.
And if there's no questions, we'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve an interlocal agreement between the city of Borger and Hutchinson County for emergency medical services.
Second.
And all in favor? And there's no opposed, so it passes. Item 8, consider and take appropriate action to approve an emergency ambulance service agreement between the City of Borger and American Medical Response Ambulance Service, Inc., AMR. Mr. Bradley.
So now that we've inked the deals with the other taxing entities, we've got to, ink the deal with AMR to provide service until we're ready to take over, and that's what this does. This contract is for the 1.5 ambulances like they currently use. It is for a 3-month period, going month to month after that, at that $68,000 a month. So we're good through May 14th, and for that matter, we're as good month to month as long as we need it. They just need 30 days advance notice to suspend the agreement, and for whatever reason, should this go more than a year, they get a 3% escalation in that amount after 12 months. Like I said, we are still on track, and everything's still looking pretty good for a May 14th transition, so the rest of those provisions won't come into play.
Okay.
Okay.
Will we be, on this contract, say if we don't need them in mid-month, do you still pay for the whole month? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it can be month to month, okay. All right.
Okay. If there's no other questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve an emergency ambulance service agreement between the City of Borger and American Medical Response Ambulance Service Incorporated, and authorize the city manager to sign any and all documents necessary.
Second.
And all in favor? And it passes.
I will just add one thing. Deidre and I are currently working on a little fact sheet, a little brochure on kind of what's going on with all of this. We're starting to see some more questions. And so we're going to start pushing out some of that stuff now that we've got some more things finalized, so you can be looking for some of that, because we've been speaking very complicated,
Yeah.
lots of
Yeah.
numbers.
Okay, so we'll move on to number 9, consider and take appropriate action to approve the participation in the following opioid settlements. Walmart, Allergon,
Your guess is as good as mine.
CVS and Walgreens. Mr.
So,
Bradley.
a little over a year ago, we approved the state term sheet for some settlements with Johnson & Johnson and the other pharmaceutical manufacturers. So if you recall, a lot of the states have sued the opioid manufacturers and their marketing procedures, saying that, they were pushing opioids more than they should, and therefore had a part in the opioid epidemic and addiction. And so all of these companies have settled, and they're starting to settle now. And so we have signed onto the state term sheet and made our participation. Now Walmart, Allergan, CVS, and Walgreens have settled on the distribution standpoint, because, they were making money on all those prescriptions they were selling to people that didn't need them too.
Right.
And so that's what this participation would be. So these funds are very specific, restricted on what we can use them for. When we get them, they've got to be used for things that can, assist or improve, drug addiction and those type of things. These 4 settlements over the term of the settlements are worth a little over $58,000 for the city, so it's not necessarily a ton, but compared with everything, and if all the other jurisdictions in the county or the Panhandle pull them together to support programs, this could help fund the drug courts programs and some of those outreach, and that's what they're intended for. So I don't think we want to leave any money on the table that we don't have to. So,
Absolutely.
answer any other questions you might have on those.
If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the city's participation in the opioid settlements with Walmart, Allergan, CVS, and Walgreens, and authorize the city manager to execute any documents needed to effectuate the same.
Second.
And all in favor? And it passes. And item 10, consider and take appropriate action to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? And we're adjourned. Thank y'all so much for coming.
You did
Thank you
good.